Welcome, everyone, to Real Money, Real Experts. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Mary. We're glad to have you.
Today, we're coming to you live on YouTube. Hopefully, you're joining us here to catch up after the holidays and give you a glimpse of what's in store with the podcast for 2022. Mary, it's so good to see you.
It's good to see you. It's been a long break, and we're really excited to welcome everybody that's listening out today because we're here to answer your questions as well. So feel free to put them in the chat. If you're on YouTube, put them in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. And if you are watching this recording afterwards, feel free to email us, any of our staff, to be able to help you and follow up with whatever your questions or needs are. But we're really glad you're here today, and let's get started. I'm really excited to tell you about some of the exciting things that we have planned for season 3 of this next year for our Real Money, Real Experts. First of all, I do want to say welcome to Rachel. We're glad to have you. I know Rebecca's transitioning out, and Rachel is now our interim director for AFCPE. Congratulations and welcome, Rachel.
Thank you, Mary. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited for this first season of the podcast for me.
Yeah.
Our third for the organization, and just really thrilled to be have the opportunity to guide the organization through this transition and potentially into the future.
Well, we're really excited to have you, and I'm glad that you're here. We've been talking, so over the break, Rachel and I have been keeping tabs and trying to figure out what do we really want to do for season 3. And it really came back to a couple of ideas. So we know several of you are wanting to get into the profession or not, and not sure where to go career-wise. We have a lot of questions. So me as a college professor, I get this question all the time, like, how do I do this? Or how do I get into this career field or this job? And then Rachel, from your end, I'm sure you hear this a lot of, I'm looking for a career in financial counseling or coaching, and how do I get started? And so we're here today to talk about some of that. We're also going to be doing our first whole several months of season 3 is going to be dedicated specifically to careers, of how people got into their careers, some career track projections, and kind of where you can go to look to getting into this profession. We're excited to have this launch, and a super exciting thing about this year is it's actually our 30th anniversary of the Accredited Financial Counselor designation. So that is 30 years of the AFC. Rachel, can you believe it?
It has been a long time coming. So yeah, we're super excited, not only for that, but just to circle back even to the way we're gonna kick off the podcast next year, really is a celebration in the AFC itself. We're when people come to us to get certified, I think they're really blown away about the different career paths that you can take with this designation. And oftentimes that can feel, because there are a lot of choices, a little overwhelming. And so we have some really great guests that we're going to bring on to talk about, what you can do with that designation. And so many people have even crossed over career paths. So whether it's nonprofit or private practice or military, government, the list goes on. And we're really excited to talk to a lot of people about their paths and how that might look for you.
Yeah. And I think that's a really beautiful segue into the celebration that we're going to do for the rest of the year. And that is celebrating the history of where we came from, of us being around for 30 years of having the AFC credential. And so with that segue, we're going to bring in a lot of people that have been around for a long time, some historical knowledge, and it might answer your questions. I know that even as a member for many years now, I don't know who did what and how all those things came into play. And so I think it's going to be a really nice transition and piece as we start to celebrate some of that history, and especially those that came before, and we can celebrate them and what they've laid for us today. Rachel, as I was thinking about the career tracks and the AFC and where we're going with it, it just reminds me that even though sometimes it feels like there are so many choices, it can seem overwhelming, it's also kind of nice because that means you can carve out your own profession in a way that is fulfilling to you, and specifically your career. I think of other professions, and even in financial planning, we keep trying to say, okay, here's your career track and this is the way it's done. And I remember getting out of after my master's degree, trying to get the experience requirement for my CFP, and it was very rote. It had to be this way and this way only. And I did that trajectory and I did not enjoy it. The wealth management side was not for me. And so I've loved that the AFC, although sometimes that's hard because there isn't a step-by-step instruction book, it's also an opportunity for so many to jump in and be a part of an ever-growing profession, right? And create a career that is fulfilling to you and however is best suits you.
Yeah, I think the world is changing a lot in that way. I think the idea of this linear career progression is a lot different than it used to be. I think people are realizing what they're passionate about early and are really able to align those passions with their career choices. And I think the AFC really allows people to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to wrap up this episode of this year, the season this year, with our keynote speakers. And we'll highlight those kind of as we get closer to our symposium, as we've done in prior years. And we're really excited, as always. I feel like every year you guys just keep going a step higher, like knocking it out of the park, but then you knock it out even further the year after. So you've set the bar
Thanks,
pretty
Mary.
high.
No pressure,
last year.
but we're excited to meet that expectation again in 2022. And for those who are planning to join us, we'll be in Orlando, Florida this year. So a little sunshine, and also just really nice to be back together, with a hybrid option as well for those who aren't ready to travel or don't have the means, or, sometimes we understand that's a lot to balance, but we're just really excited to truly meet people where they are this year and allow them to pick the way to be together that they need to be.
That's awesome. That's great. And I think that's a unique thing that AFCPs learned to do really, really well, is do both a virtual option. And we've already had years of experience of an in-person option. So we know that that's done well, but I think that'll be great to have both for people. Bring the family. Heck, if you're going to go to Orlando,
I know,
forward.
right? Absolutely. Make a stay for the week, bring them up for the weekend.
There you go.
For sure. Mary, I know personally and professionally, you have a lot going on right now too. We've talked a little bit about what's going on with the podcast. What do you have exciting for 2022?
I am always funny because I have more ideas than I have bandwidth. I think there's many that can relate to that. But right now, what I'm super excited about is I've got some things in the hopper for Chief Financial Mom. But I just started over the break a new business. It's more of a B2B side, so business to business, and it's called Carlson Consulting. And one of the first things I'm going to be rolling out is I'm working with 3 other academics right now who are wanting to bring financial behavior to the stage and really be keynote speakers and make it easier for event planners and industry members to find research-based speakers to be able to speak at events and really share the wealth, right? Share the information that we have as AFCs, as CFPs, as financial behavior experts in this field. And so I'm looking forward to it. It's still in the works. We're working on a website now, but we're hoping to have that all rolled out by the end of the first quarter and be all ready to go for the fall. So that's our big project for this year.
Super exciting, Mary. I can't wait to see what comes when it comes to fruition. Where I think some of our most loved speakers from the symposium each year are the ones that really speak about behavioral finance and those important topics, because oftentimes we all have the knowledge, but working with those behaviors to create lasting change is really, the focus of the work we do.
Absolutely. So Rachel, let's actually switch. I think we've kind of caught up on everything, unless there's anything you want to add.
No, go ahead.
Let's switch into some questions. We have some questions that were sent in before we started recording. So let me just start asking you. We had one of our listeners ask how they can apply to be a guest on our podcast.
Great question. And we are always looking for new guests. We'll put this in the show notes as well to make it easy for you and put it in the chat. But I did want to let you know, if you go to afcpe.org/real money, real experts, on that page, you'll find a guest link. And if you fill out, or a guest form all the way at the bottom, fill that out, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get back to you if it's a good fit. We are making some changes to our Real Money, Real Experts website just to make it a little more accessible. Right now, it's a little bit of a hard find on our website. It's located under news and publications. But over the next few months, you'll see that on the homepage and have a lot easier access to find that guest form.
Yeah, in fact, Rachel, that was another question we got earlier is how do you even find the podcast, right? So if you're a podcast listener, just know you can go to any podcast subscription that you use. So if it's Buzzsprout or Apple Podcasts or Google or Spotify or the whole host of them, right? However you get your podcast, just type in Real Money, Real Experts, and you'll be able to find us. But I love that you brought up the website because that is something that I think is really important is that for our members who maybe aren't just maybe occasional podcast listeners or don't know how to access that, we are going to make it not only easier on the website, but the other thing we're really working on right now is trying to archive our episodes because in the past it's been kind of hard to go back and maybe listen to episodes that are prior to our most 10 recent ones. And so we're working right now to be able to release those. So you'll be able to send a URL to a friend and say, hey, check this out. Or I use it in my class all the time. So any teachers out there, or if you've got students or others, clients even, you could just send them a link and that way they can listen to that specific podcast and not have to go through all of the various podcasts that are growing by the day.
Yeah. And I just want to add too, I mean, we talked a little bit about our theme for the season, but we're always just looking for really interesting guests that are, making an impact on the field. Specific for this year, if you have an interesting trajectory through a certain, part of the field, whether that's nonprofit or government or military, drop us a line, let us know that. But we're also looking for our AFCs out there, what you're doing with your AFC that's making an impact. And so as we move into that celebration of the AFC, just hearing from you all about the work that you're doing, even if we can't use it on the podcast, we do spotlights every Friday through our website. We'll be relaunching our Real Money, Real Answer segment for consumers next year. And so, start with that guest form, tell us a little bit about yourself, and we'll try to find a space for you.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, Rachel, that just kind of re-triggered my memory of task force. We have a lot of task force and a lot of needs on those task force. So even if, like you mentioned before, we've only got a very limited number of slots because this is only a bi-weekly podcast. But we need your voice and your experience and everything you bring to so many of the different roles we have at AFCPE. So we'll put you to work no matter where you come, either on the podcast or somewhere else. We always appreciate those help.
Well, speaking of task forces, Mary, I know that you helped with the career task force and you wrote a lot of the information that is on our career center page. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, you'll find as you're in AFCPE, it's a very small world. And I remember distinctly talking to Rebecca after one symposium. We were just kind of at a late night, just sitting there chatting. And I said, I get the question all the time that people need a career in financial counseling, right? They want to work in financial counseling and coaching, but I don't know what to tell them. Like my career trajectory has been crazy and all over the board. So the answer for usually is don't follow what I do, do what someone else does. But then I talked to, in fact, that's been a theme on this show is everyone said, well, I kind of landed into it or I fell into it. And so one of the things that I felt, and this is, at least 5, maybe 6 years ago, I thought we need career paths, right, in the profession of financial counseling and planning. And so there were 3 of us, Ryan Law, Thomas Duffney, and I got together and just said, let's create it. In fact, this is always funny because Rebecca looked at me. I had forgot to add this part. She looked at me and said, well, go ahead, Mary, work on it. And I was like, oh, so do learn that if you want to say something, just be prepared to follow up with that, right?
That is the truth.
So I did, and the 3 of us really went to work and we created what's on the website now, and we'll put the link to the career paths in the chat, and we'll also put in the show notes afterwards so that you'll have access to that.
Yeah.
But we literally took the 4 big areas that most people were finding jobs in the financial counseling area and tried to carve out how to get in there and who to touch and who to contact. I will tell you, Rachel, I think the most important thing that anybody can do coming in is network, is meet people. And there's not a better place to do it than within the walls of AFCPE because you've got so many ways to connect. But yeah, the more you network with people and find out opportunities, you'll just be amazed at how doors can open and be ready for you.
Yeah. And we'll drop the link to the Career Center in the notes too. But I just wanted to call out too, you guys started the flow of that. And since then, like the career task force has continued to build those out. And we actually have some spotlights on the different pages. You can get to know, somebody who's specifically in that career. And so I think that'll be something our career task force continues to work on year after year. And as Mary said, next week, AFCPE members can sign up for task forces, and career task force is one of those. So stay tuned if you're a member. Look for an email coming out for the different ways you can get involved. If you're not an AFCPE member, January is the best time to join.
Yeah. Well, that actually leads us into the next question, Rachel. And that is, what is this difference between certification and membership?
Yeah, Mary, this was a listener question, and this is a question I think the staff is probably chuckling right now. We get this question a lot. Oftentimes people who are certified, they hear their annual certification fee and membership is coming up, and then they say, well, I'm already a member. Well, no, you're not a member, you're certified. So short answer, and I love the way this is put. Thank you, Loisa Singletary, our communications manager, coined this, and I just think it's brilliant. But certification is something that you do for your client. So you're getting certified to build your knowledge, but to have the credibility and the confidence, and have a sound ethical organization behind you. So you're doing that for your client. You're getting certified to show your client that you have set those standards. Membership is something that you do for yourself. So it is providing you with continuing education, resources, community to continue to build yourself, both personally and professionally. And that's sort of high level how we differentiate the two. I do want to call out, you do not have to be certified to be a member, which I think is a really unique piece of the membership community. And I do think it's really important. It brings in people from all parts of the field. We have planners, therapists, we have people working in social work. We have people that are just starting out in financial counseling that maybe are thinking about certification, but they're not sure if it's for them yet. We always say start with membership. It's sort of that melting pot of ideas and community.
And those of you that are new to AFCPE or even not a member yet, I will tell you, and this is not just me, but so many I've run into have said time and time again, it is the most active community that you've ever been a part of. And it's one of those that you kind of have the control of the water faucet. You can turn on and it will go fire hydrant speed if that's what you choose. Or if you need it a little more dialed back, you can do that too. But people are waiting and willing and wanting to help and listen and talk and communicate. So if you have any hesitations of whether you should join, whether you're an AFC or not, I would say jump in. And the more you jump in with both feet and just become a part of it, I think you'll find that there are not just professionals to connect with, but there's friendships. And that's the biggest thing with this community is these are lifelong friendships that go on for literally decades and decades. And I love it. I think that's the best part. I thank you for explaining that. I do appreciate that. But that
Absolutely
helps solidify in my mind.
A little bit.
Yeah.
We're also working on some website updates that we continue to do things both in our dashboard and our website to make that a little more clear, because we know it's confusing. AFC, AFCPE, those are very similar but very different pieces of our organization.
I do have to give a shout out. One of our listeners on YouTube, Debbie. Hi, Debbie. She just said she got her job as a financial counselor with a government contracting company from the AFCP career section. So good. I'm glad. Oh, and good. Rachel just told us that post-pandemic, she found a lot more emphasis on financial wellness. Financial coaches are perfect for this kind of work. Thank
that's
you, Rachel. That is
awesome.
a great point that financial, and when we say financial and coaching and counseling, there are differences, but we work together so often. So this is a home not just for financial counselors, but financial coaches. And I ought to even expand that out, financial professionals in general, financial therapists, financial planners, anybody in that world, or even interested. We even have hobbyists, I would call them, or enthusiasts maybe, who are in totally different professions, but really like personal finance and want to get connected. So we welcome all of you into this network.
Absolutely. So, Mary, you've been in AFC since we're celebrating 30 years. You've been in AFC not for 30 years. You would have been born in AFC, but for a while. Tell us how you got started.
Oh, well, yes, you're right. Back in the time of the dinosaurs, just kidding. No, I found a financial planning program. I was one of the lucky ones that actually found financial planning in college. I was working on my master's and ended up doing a financial planning program. And I had a wonderful mentor named Dobby Durbin. And any of you that know Dottie, in fact, there was kind of a little nickname for her. We were always called the Dottie Disciples because I remember taking financial counseling from her. So I got to take a class in financial counseling is how I found the profession. But I remember taking the class and I just felt like I was coming home. It was me. It was who I am. It's what I wanted to do. It was just kind of my calling in life. I didn't find it in investments or retirement or taxes or any other financial planning classes, but in financial counseling, I thought this is my space. And so being a Dottie disciple, I followed her my very first year to my first professional conference, and that was AFCPE. And so I was a student at my first conference and just fell in love with it. And because of that community, I kept coming back for years. In fact, I know that for a while there, I took a pause and I couldn't get away from it because there were so many friendships and so many people saying, hey, when are you coming back? When are you going to be a part of it? So I got the AFC shortly thereafter, but it was that pull. It was really the friendships that have kept me coming back year after year after year. So although I was one of the fortunate few that found it through an education system, I know there's other ways to do it. Rachel, will you share with us what some of the other methods of
Yeah.
getting into AFC are?
Of course. So there are different pathways to certification, and probably the most common one is self-study. So that's when you get the books and materials, or you take the webinar review, and you go through that education. I say on your own, but I will say in recent years, the certification program has done such an incredible job. We have a connected community for candidates, which is an online discussion board. So candidates will reach out to one another and create sort of ad hoc study groups and things like that. So we always say lean on your peers. So self-study is one way, and it's nice because you can do it at your own pace. If you, we have an online study guide that goes with it that helps you sort of section it out and move along. We have some people who go through the whole education program, in a couple months, and others take a year. So, it just depends. And then we also offer a registered education program. So different universities throughout the country, universities like UGA, Texas Tech, I'm going to forget some biggies, but we have I think around 30 universities that are affiliated with us, and also some community colleges. And so you can actually get your education while going to school at those universities by taking approved curriculum and then take your exam through us. So it's kind of a great way to sort of save some money on that education and do it right when you're, in school. Some of the community colleges offer the distance learning as well, which is nice for people who have graduated. You don't have to be enrolled full-time as a student. You can literally take that curriculum. And that's really nice for someone who needs a little more guidance. AFCPE does offer webinar reviews that do help. Some people like having an instructor to hold them accountable. And so along with that, we also offer challenge options. So if you have a designation like a CFP already, you do meet some of those requirements. And so you can get credit for part of that education and only have to study the other portion to be ready for the exam. And then our newest launched program is the independent trainer program. So we have AFCs who've signed up to be independent trainers. And what makes me so excited about this program is that it's really convenient, maybe for an organization that wants to bring a trainer in. They can save costs on books and materials and have someone on site there, whether on site or virtual in the world we live in now, to help them get ready for the exam. So many different options. And our certification team is fantastic. So if you have questions, they will probably do a much better job than I do giving all of those. But we really have put a lot of thought into meeting people where they are.
Well, I'm just so impressed that it has expanded so much too, because it used to be really two options, the self-study and the education realm. And if you didn't get one of those two in self-study, like you said, is hard because you needed the more accountability. But I will tell you, it has advanced so much, even the self-study with the community and building and camaraderie. So in fact, we have a couple of viewers today. Sean just said he started his
Hi,
AFC
Sean.
certification. And he's looking forward to diving deep into community. So thanks, Sean. We appreciate it. And yes, we're glad you're here. Frances is a new member and she can't wait to learn. She does workshops for women of color. Beautiful. I love it. On how to start investing in the stock market for novices. And this will enhance my work. That's a perfect example right there. Rachel, Frances just described somebody who's already in the industry. She's already doing something. And I love that she has a niche, right? Because we need more of that. And we also need people. And I love that she's enhancing because yes, you can be an accountant, you can be a planner, you can be an estate planning attorney, you can have an MBA. It doesn't matter. This is helping enhance. And I will tell you, as both a CFP and an AFC, there's absolutely things that I studied in the AFC curriculum and on that exam that were never covered in any of my CFP curriculum. So don't think that it's duplicating one another. They're actually two very different tests. And if you're really wanting to enhance, especially I feel like now with all the sensitive issues of death or just family relationships, relationship dynamics, marriage dynamics, right? There's so many sensitive topics that come up in financial discussions that this certification helps guide you. It gives you the skills you need to help answer and even just guide, maybe be a mediator sometimes and not always have the answers. This is the place to find help in getting those skills.
So true. And then I see Lauren responded to, sorry, my stuff's on another screen. Lauren says, I'm an AFC candidate and so excited to go on this journey to take a new role where I'm employed. For experience hours, would listening to this podcast count toward those hours? Excited to listen. Lauren, I wish it would. And I hope that doesn't deter you from listening to us. Right now, that would not count. But if you are a member, we do offer all of our webinars. We offer 2 a month, one through AFCPE education and another in partnership with FPA and our FPA financial counseling community. And then all of the webinars on demand, those do count to a percentage of your experience hours. So, and since we're talking about experience hours, love a good segue.
Question on that. How, Rachel, a lot of people ask, how do you get experience to get your designation and use it?
Yeah, so we do have a really great guide to experience hours that talks about the different ways. Most of your hours do need to come from one-on-one counseling. And for someone already working in the field, sometimes that's really easy to do. And then for others who maybe work in another industry, but are taking the coursework and studying on the side, that could be a little more difficult. We always say start with friends and family. That's a really great place to sort of take the rust off. Reach out to libraries, local nonprofits, and others in your area. But we're also going to be offering later this spring an experience fair. So last year we held our first virtual job fair, which was a big success. And this year we're both holding an experience fair to offer opportunities for our candidates to find experience, volunteer or paid opportunities. And we're also putting together an experience job board. So we'll have a board or a place you can come, and as organizations are looking for volunteers, that's something you can do as well.
You know, Rachel, the one thing I would give advice for people looking to get work experience is don't discount what you've done or what you are doing.
Yes.
Especially if you're already in the financial field, wherever you may be, because what you may find is you already have an ideal setup. You just need to start using some of those counseling skills and having someone oversee them. So I would say always ask before you just, I've heard a lot of my students say, oh, well, this wouldn't count. Well, you don't know, right? And so reach out, ask, and let's find out, because they can work on a solution for you as you're kind of navigating it. You don't have to quit your job and go to a nonprofit or go to a for-profit or whatever. There's no, you're not stuck in a box, but reach out if you already, especially if you're in the financial field, and find out what does and does not work for that experience.
That's a great suggestion. And one other thing to add, you know, in the beginning of 2020, Wells Fargo generously gave us a large grant. We have a financial counseling initiative that is currently going on and ongoing. And if you have passed your AFC exam, you're eligible to take part in that. And so that's a really great way to get your hours as a candidate. You're giving back to the local community, you're getting that experience, and it does also include a stipend. And then starting in February, we're partnering with NFCC, AMBA, and continuing with that grant funding from Wells Fargo. And we're going to be serving the veteran community as well. And so, you know, if you're part of our program and you've passed your exam and you still need to work on those hours, that's a great way to get involved.
And if you don't know of all of our acronyms yet, so Rachel was just
Sorry.
talking about the financial counseling, NFCC, National Financial Counseling.
National Foundation for Credit Counseling.
Thank you. And AMBA, which is the Military Banking Association. So
Yes.
those are two groups coming together for this new VA project. We're super excited about that and excited to have that roll out as well. You know, Rachel, there's an important question I think we need to answer before we go, though, and that is there's confusion in the field because there's a lot of certifications out there, right? And there's a lot of places providing certifications. So can you kind of help us understand what certifications we offer at AFCPE and how are those different than all of the other million certifications you can get?
Absolutely. Well, AFCPE offers two certifications, the AFC and the AFC Canada. So I'll speak specifically to the AFC. The AFC Canada is for our Canadian, our friends on the other side of the border, but we run that certification as well.
Let me jump in really quick just to make sure. When we say AFC, we're so used to saying it. Let me just
Accredited Financial Counselor.
Thank you.
You're going to catch me on these acronyms today. We joke because we have an internal cheat sheet for all our new hires, so we need to provide that to everyone else. So the AFC is what we're celebrating because it's been around for 30 years. And it is also NCCA accredited. And so there's another acronym. But really what that says is it's accredited by the same accrediting body as the CFP. And so it's a reputable accrediting body that is making sure that our exam is rigorously sound, that we're following ethical standards, and that we have to submit for that reaccreditation every 5 years. So we are the only financial counseling certification program in the field that has this mark, this accrediting body behind us. And so that's what really sets the AFC apart from other certifications. It also is more holistic than any other certification in financial counseling. Like Mary said, when we talk about financial planning, credit counseling, they're all part of a spectrum. The AFC covers everything from credit, debt management, all the way to investments, estate planning. And it doesn't go as deep as a financial planning certification would on that other side of things, that, investments. But we think it's really important if you're going to work with a client that you can meet them where they are and that you can understand their financial situation. So that is in a nutshell how we're different. One thing I will say, and perhaps we can put this in the chat too, FINRA has a website that lists their accredited certifications. So as a consumer, as a professional looking into certifications, you will be able to find all the certifications in the field. I believe there are only around 14 total in the vast alphabet soup that are accredited, and we are one of them. And as I said, the only financial counseling certification.
Great. In fact, you know what? I'm putting two links, one
Perfect.
from our website explaining the accreditation process. And Rachel, I do want to highlight that. That is by far the biggest distinguisher from us and any other financial counseling, coaching, certification out there. In
Absolutely.
order to meet those standards, there's so many, working in academia, you know this too, is there's so many fly by the night shops that pop up and will give you a certificate, but require no education experience, no ongoing. In this field, there are so many things changing constantly. Taxes obviously are just one of them, right? And so
Right.
it's really important to have a designation that does encourage, not make, but encourage you to keep up with all of the changes, because what I learned 20 years ago is not as relevant or irrelevant at all in today's
Absolutely.
marketplace. And so you can do more damage than good if you're using outdated information. And so that piece of being accredited through that in CAA, we put the link in there. You can find out a lot more about the process. It was a very rigorous process. And like you said, it was the same accreditation the CFP is. That's really the gold standard in the industry. There are no others that meet that criteria in our industry.
I joined AFCPE around the time we were going through that accrediting process. And so I learned a lot, through that process as well, not even being on the certification side of the house at the time. But really anyone can call themselves a certification, which is a little scary. And, there are a lot of regulations that need to be followed in order to be accredited. And there's a big difference from a certificate program and a certification program. And one of those, but not exclusive, is that ongoing continuing education requirement, ethical requirement. And so that kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You're getting that certification, of course, for yourself, but really for your clients and for the people that you serve, because it says that you believe in the value of upholding that knowledge and reinvesting in that knowledge in order to better serve them.
Absolutely. And that also kind of spins me off. Anyone can call themselves a financial counselor. You don't even have to have
Yes.
a designation. And you can be out giving advice. Now, I wouldn't recommend it because it can be a point of contention, but I would say that. So whoever asked before, can you listen to our podcast and get experience requirement? Not for the experience requirement, but I will tell you, we've had several podcasts that have talked about registration and when you need to be registered, and if you need to be registered, why you would need to be registered. All of these things are really important topics, right? And it's really important that you know those details, because I think there's a lot of people trying to do good out there maybe, but don't have the information. And that's why AFCPE even exists, is because we want to provide good, but we also want to be ethical and make sure we're providing appropriate information that's current and relevant and correct for right now. And so I think we've talked a lot about that. If you have more questions, please reach out to the staff and we will and have put those in. Gary, welcome. You are a CFP and a CRPC. Talk about the alphabet soup. We are covering it today. With 25 years of financial planning experience, his pro bono work with Gold Star families and disaster recovery has led him to look more into counseling skills. Gary, welcome. We're so excited to have you. And we've actually, so I kind of came from the military world as well. And we actually found that a lot of CFPs that can go on bases and can help, we're finding that they were falling a little bit short with some of the debt, the credit, the budgeting skills that are needed, because that's not taught in a CFP curriculum. So we've had a lot come on board. And first of all, Gary, thank you for all you're doing. We sure appreciate you giving of your time and services. And I think that's what's so great about this community, is you're going to find so many people in here that are giving their heart, right? They do so much work for free, so much pro bono, and so much to help other people, paid and unpaid.
I see.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, finish up.
Diana, I'm going to try to answer that question, but I also may connect you back with Jared Taylor just about best practices. But Diana had a question about presenting yourself when attempting to get experience hours without being misleading. And Mary, I don't know if you have any suggestions just from your experience going through the AFC program.
Yeah, I think, Diana, one of the things that I think I would work really carefully with is I would work with certification and make sure they will have a process of when you can and cannot use the marks before you start putting it on business cards or talking to clients about it. And I believe, Rachel, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it also requires kind of a supervisor or someone signing off on that experience. Am I
Yeah,
correct?
we've had a few changes to the way that works. So I'll connect you directly. I would say, Diana, reach out directly to Jared Taylor, but I think I would just be straightforward. I think providing some education about who AFCPE is, the curriculum that you're going through, what it brings. I would say most nonprofit groups, credit, not banks, but like libraries, other local groups in your community, a lot of times they're looking for volunteers to do that work. And if you can show sort of the credibility behind that, that's always a good thing. But certainly if you're running into any roadblocks, let us know. And Jared could help with that as well. Chandra Park says, I'm an AFC candidate and excited to use this certification with my social work degree. Chandra, awesome. I think that's amazing. We definitely have some social workers within our fold, and there is such an overlap between the two. As we all know, money touches everything. So I'm excited for you to use that as well.
And
hi, Brenda.
Yeah, Brenda came along. She's in AFC and has been since 2006. And Brenda does something really unique. She actually works in colleges in financial aid. And Rachel, this is one thing that I have not understood yet of why all of these financial aid counselors in colleges everywhere should be certified with an AFC. It just seems like
I 100% agree.
Brenda is she has been stellar and preaching the good word, and I know that many more will come because of her and her influence. So thanks for joining us. And it looks like
also a past board president. So
yes.
Welcome, Brenda. Thanks for doing it.
Be really careful what you say because you will be called on to help, right, Brenda? She's raised her hand a few too many times.
That's right.
We love it. Debbie, welcome. She is taking the Military Essentials course. Oh, good. Would you talk a little bit about that, of the Military Essentials and what it covers?
Yeah, so Military Essentials was actually a course that we built in partnership with FINRA Foundation. And so for many years, FINRA Foundation and AFCPE have offered PFM webinar series. And this course was built upon a lot of that education to house it all in one space. To kind of talk about essentials in general, those courses are offered through our education department. They're not certification courses, but they're really great opportunities for people to specialize their knowledge a little bit more. So, the AFC or Money Management Essentials courses covers the breadth of the AFC, but not the depth. And it's a really great sort of starter course for someone thinking of going on for the AFC, accredited financial counselor, or you might use it within your nonprofit facility with more of those volunteers. You might want them to get a money management essentials, then you'd have an AFC on staff. So we built that essentials course as a capacity building model. But we offer things like college finance essentials. Mary's good friend Ryan helped develop the course for that. Financial inclusion essentials, which is for working with people with disabilities. And we partnered with National Disability Institute. And coming later this year, we're in the process with the support of Chase to develop a diversity, equity, and inclusion essentials. So really excited about our essentials courses. Like I said, they're not certifications. They're housed in an online learning system. They're 10 to 12 hours. You can work through them at your own pace. You can collect all the badges, but they're a really great way to, take your education just a step further.
I was just thinking back on my career of how I would have appreciated the military essentials about 10 years ago when my very first job after financial planning, I was hired at the Pentagon. And I will tell you, if you think Rachel says a lot of acronyms, that place is full of acronyms, and they were throwing them out at me as fast as I could. And I had no clue. I had no dictionary, no way to look it up. And I look back and think, oh, if I'd only had that military essentials course, right? Then I could have at least, probably still not caught all of them, but I could have at least known what a GS scale was. Like, I came in so new. I had no clue what I was doing. And so it reminds me of people like Gary, right? That are volunteering their time or working for a government contractor that maybe have spent 20 plus years in financial planning and never worked with the military. Well, if you're going into government contracting, you've everyone, I guess, expects you to know these things. And so that's where these courses really come into play, is it gets you up to speed very quickly. And so you'll know and be able to help from the ground running, right? That you've taken that course, you're familiar, because the military pays are different, retirement is different, benefits are different. There was so much that I had to learn, and there really was no playbook for me. And so this is your playbook in so many areas, right? DEI, there's so many different ones that you can do. And those of you that are already in the profession, this is a way for you to niche down. Just like we saw earlier, if you're ready to niche, and you should be niching, great, take a course and really focus in and hone in on that genre that you're working with.
Yeah, and it just helps set you apart too from others. The more you know, the more you learn. And especially with things like financial inclusion essentials, as a professional, you're serving so many different types of people. And so to be able to meet different people where they are and react and be agile to work with them and their unique experiences, it's really important.
Absolutely. Well, Rachel, we've had some great conversation. I appreciate all those that joined today and all of you that are listening and that will catch up a little bit later. We're glad that you're here. Please remember to subscribe to our podcast, Real Money, Real Experts, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a rating and review, and then share it with a friend. We're glad to introduce new people to the AFCPE community and the value of the AFC. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you